Alright, and once the build is successful, you're going to want to click OK. And if you navigate to the directory that you selected for the ISO build, you will see that there are 3 folders that are important. The first one is the disk 1. This contains the source of the ISO. That way you are not required to mount your ISO to be able to get the data if you simply wish to copy it to a thumb drive. As well, we have the ISO temp folder, which should be empty, and the ISO log folder. This will contain the XML, which includes all of the information that will be on the DVD that you just built. As well, you will have the ISO build, which will run through all of the processes. And then, of course, you have the OSC DIMG log, which is the utility that is used to create the ISO. Now, if we mount the ISO to a virtual machine using the virtual DVD drive, as you can see here, it automatically comes with the auto run selection, which will prompt you for what would you like to do. We're going to select in-place migration and hit finish, which will start the conductor. And then, of course, we get to the computer future state box, which is virtually identical to the role selection screen that you get in WinPE when booting to WinPE on a bare metal machine. Now, the difference is you only have the option to use the templates that were put on the ISO. Now, as you can see here, we are connected to the Swimage server, so it can track the deployment, because as long as you have a connection to your server, you should be able to monitor the deployment. Now, you can either choose the role and set up the future state using the role that you put on the ISO, or you can change the details just like you would in a regular WinPE role selection screen. Once you continue, it will run through the verification future state details as well as the other phases and validation steps. And then the final step will be to boot to WinPE. Now, if you want, you can also select to have USMT rules included in the DVD build so that if you're doing a break fix deployment, you can back up that USMT data using this DVD, which will store either on a network share or locally, just like you would with a zero touch. And then our computer will reboot. And automatically launch into the WinPE phase. Alright, and then we get the load screen for the Swimage conductor in the WinPE phase. It will run through a few validation steps to verify that it has the same computer and that a future state already exists on the Swimage server for the computer in question. And then, of course, because we already selected the future state while we were in Windows 7, it should automatically run through the entire Swimage process and proceed to the OSD disk format and then drop the WIM. Now, while that's working, let's check on the other machine. Now, this virtual machine has no network connections at all. We're going to be doing a bare metal boot to DVD ISO deployment. This is good for deployments that do not have access to the internet or standalone laptops at isolated sites that just simply need to be either break fixed or initially deployed. And then of course we get the WinPE load screen. All right, and then we get a blank computer future state. As you can see here, it indicates template functions are not available when running offline. So we're going ahead and set the name. And select the computer role. And then as you can see here, all of the details are already set. Now because the applications are not part of the role, we will have to manually add them. All right, and then we hit continue. And it will proceed directly to the OSD disk format because all of the other verification processes are unnecessary because this is a disconnected deployment. And then as you can see here, the active deployment dashboard will monitor the first deployment because it is connected to the server. However, the second deployment will not be monitored because it does not have an internet connection. Now both deployments should go almost exactly the same. The only difference is that the deployment that does not have an internet connection will need to be connected when it gets to the join domain step. Now by default, if Swimage attempts to join to the domain and it is unable to do so, it will present you with a dialog box with the option to abort, retry, or ignore. This should give you an ample opportunity to connect to your domain and retry the join domain step. Now if you do not wish to join a domain, you can change the future state details to join it to a local work group and then join it to a domain later if your circumstances require you to do so. Now for the purposes of time constraints, I'm not going to complete these deployments. I simply wanted to demonstrate how to use the DVD builds with both a machine that is connected to your Swimage server and a machine that is not connected to your Swimage server. Please feel free to direct any comments, suggestions, or inquiries personally to me at david.epperson@intrinsic.net. Thanks for watching and have a nice day.